We are back with another collection of strange stories. You will notice that most of the stories are about glitching time people experience. I never search for an overall theme when I reach out to the community on Reddit. It is just a coincidence, or is it? Maybe this is part of the Matrix trying to get a message from whoever is listening. If you have a strange or glitching story, have it featured in my next collection and send it to storyscary152@gmail.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when new videos are uploaded. Have you ever watched time, the concept that rules our lives? What if you notice time speed up or slow down, or just go out of whack and you can't explain it? AltBallzDeep on Reddit tells his story about a time glitch. I was driving to work at around 6:45 a.m. The sun wasn't up yet, but it was glowing behind the mountains. Traffic was heavy that morning, and I was cursing at myself for not leaving a little bit earlier. I had snoozed my alarm twice since I felt a bit tired from going to bed late the night before. One important note, I was wide awake when this happened, so it can't be chalked up to hallucinations or being sleepy. Also, no history of medication, drugs, or anything else that would alter my mental state. All right, on to the glitch. The road I was on had a section of trees ahead, where it curved and turned twice. I made sure to keep my distance from the car ahead of me, since people often didn't brake for the first turn until they were right on top of it. Anyway, I looked down at the clock to see what time it was. I stared down at it for a second because the clock was off by 2 whole hours. It said it was 4:50 in the morning. Oh well, just something wrong with the clock, I thought. I'd need to fix it later. But when my eyes came back up to the road, I noticed it was pitch black outside. The sun was no longer glowing behind the mountains. Damn near looked like midnight out on that rural highway. I looked around in utter confusion. The vehicles ahead of me were gone now, nowhere to be seen. I came up to the turn in the road, swung around it and the upcoming bend, and got clear of the tree line. Still no sign of the sun or traffic. I was bewildered. I'd be way too early for work now. So I glanced down at the clock again, and what do you know? The time had changed to 6:55. I again spent a good second eyeballing the clock in total shock. Because of this, I had to hit my brakes to avoid a collision with the vehicle in front of me, the same one I had been following earlier. The sun had returned as well, glowing behind the mountains. I've been thinking about it all morning at work. What the hell happened? Did I glitch back in time for 2 whole hours? Senior Salad 4750 on Reddit tells us about the time glitch experienced. It all started back a few months ago. It was a normal quiet evening, and the phone timer struck 10 p.m. No, it wasn't daylight saving, and no, it wasn't an error. When it was around 10, I watched a video on YouTube that's 37 minutes long. Keep in mind, I did not skip the video. The clock was 10:40. I went to bed because I was tired, read 30 pages in a book, and it felt like an hour reading time, so I slept. Not a while later, my parents woke me up and laughed. They said to me, "Are you ill or something?" I was confused, then they told me that it was only 10:20. I jumped out of bed and looked at the time. It was 10:20. I knew it wasn't a prank, because my phone was with me all day. I was freaked out by that. What happened? Has time messed with me, or is this another moment that I experienced glitches where time changed? I would like to hear answers. If you are interested in more time glitches, watch the video here. Do you believe in objects or people can teleport? dyselxiccarrot on Reddit tells the story of his experience. This is a story I've always wanted to share, and have finally found a sub where maybe it'll be taken seriously. Sorry for the length, but I'm including all context and detail. This occurred in 2020, with COVID in full pledge. One of my best friends and I were back home from college and were playing on a baseball team in Canada together that summer. We were only allowed to play one team, and the team was located 1 hour and 15 minutes away, doing about 110 kilometers per hour from our town. We also did not have a bus due to COVID and drove ourselves to games. This is also the town that my friend was originally from, so I had done this drive probably 100 times by this point. Another important note is that we would always time how long it took to get there or back, because sometimes we would go super fast and see how fast we could get there. Yeah, we were stupid kids, but I held the record with 37 minutes. You turn off the Trans-Canada Highway about 5 minutes after leaving our town onto this narrow rural road. It's single lane and nothing but farm or ranch land for the entire drive. The closest thing to civilization is the odd farmhouse you see way beyond a field. Also, about halfway through the drive, there is a coulee which you must go down and up. It is impossible to miss, as it is the only part of the drive where you have to touch your pedals, other than to pass. Otherwise, you risk one. Veering into the river, which is at the bottom of the coulee, by going too fast or two, blowing out your engine due to the insanely steep hill. Another important note is that there is only one way to get between these two towns, and that is this single-lane highway. Anyways, we made the drive there and played our baseball games, and then sat for a bit. We talked with my friend's parents, watched them leave, and then sat at the ballpark for about 30 minutes afterward. Finally, we decided to leave, and we checked the clock, which read 5:17. We started talking as we drove, making time feel really fast. But after a little while I looked at my friend and said, "How have we not hit the coulee yet?" He responded with, "I don't know, but it should probably be right around this bend." We then pondered how it felt like we'd been driving forever. We got around the bend, but to our surprise, we did not see the coulee, but we were coming up to the main highway already. I looked down to see I was only doing 110 to 115 kilometers per hour. That's when both my friend and I checked the clock, which is when we realized the glitch in the matrix. It was only 5:40. We thought there has to be some explanation, so we went to my friend's house where we arrived at 5:45. We thought maybe we just forgot the time, but another detail doesn't add up. His parents aren't home. We immediately call his parents and ask where they are, because they left 30 minutes before us, but they replied by saying they were only about halfway home. We interrogated them more. Did you guys stop? No. Did we pass you? No. In fact, we actually did not pass anyone the entire time. My foot never touched the pedals. We didn't go through the coulee, passed people who left way before us, did a 115 kilometers drive in 20 minutes, and we have no clue how, unless all four happened to have massive lapses of memory at the same time. We even checked snap maps with the travel feature, confirming our trip lasted about 20 minutes. We still have no idea how we did a 1.25-hour drive in 20 minutes, and we bring it up every now and then, still with zero explanation, despite there being 4 witnesses for the event. The only logical explanation is that we teleported. Have you heard about the black-eyed children? I'm always fascinated by this urban legend. Everyone that met them was freaked out, and no one knows where they come from. BrokenDreamer1997 on Reddit tells the story of their encounter. Okay, this is going to sound totally crazy, and I know I'm bound to get a ton of puns from this, but has anyone else seen black-eyed children come from their closets as kids? When I was 5, I shared a room with my baby sister, and the closet door never closed right. As I got a little older, I remember seeing this little boy with black, soulless eyes come out of the closet, and he would always want me to play with him. I had a decent nightlight that gave a soft glow throughout the room, and the boy never traveled into the light. I remember how, at one point, he actually got mad that I kept refusing to play with him, and he snuck around the room, grabbed the cord to the nightlight, and threw it to the ground, immediately waking my baby sister, who started screaming. I got in trouble because my mom always thought that I was the one she heard playing in the room, and she was especially mad when she found the broken nightlight. She tried to punish me by leaving us without a nightlight, but I convinced her to at least leave the door open because I knew the boy would never be able to get to either of us. We eventually moved from the house, and to this day, I have never slept in the full dark, especially with the closet door open. Up until this point, I wrote it off as a bad dream and thought that was it, but my little sister, who is pregnant for the second time, said that she heard children giggling the other night that stopped whenever she turned on the lights and made sure all the doors throughout the house were shut, and it brought back memories. To make things even more interesting, my boss recently admitted that there's an old superstition about not letting children sleep in a dark room with the closet door open. When I asked why, he said that there were black-eyed children who would coax the children into the closet and they would never be seen again. Has anyone experienced this phenomenon? Is there really an urban legend of black-eyed children in closets? Why do I only hear about the black-eyed children on the streets going after adults? Has anyone experienced black-eyed children in the closet? I need answers. Comment if you know of these scary beings. The following is a really scary paranormal glitching story of KattZaun. This happened last night, and I cannot explain this phenomenon, but I know what I saw. It was 3:38 in the morning, and I heard my sister get up from her bed. We share a room currently. I thought I had to get up for school, so I got up. I also heard the door creak open and closed, which is the reason I woke up. I decided to check the time on the microwave despite having my phone quite near me. I don't think straight when I'm woken up, or I'm randomly woken up. I opened the door to see my sister near the water stack in the kitchen near our island. I see her turn right towards the office area. Once I'm close enough to the time on the microwave, it was 3:38 like I've said previously. But when I turned, I saw my sister on the couch. I could have sworn to see her have turned right and entered the office, but nope. She was laying on the couch to the left. These are two explanations for how this could have happened. 1. I saw something of the paranormal. 2. She was just quick to get back to the couch. To recap, I saw my sister walk during the night and she disappeared, but a few seconds later I saw her on the couch. Either way, it is unexplainable. Next up, SlyFoxInACave on Reddit explains how he glitched into another reality, and has anyone experienced this before? Stories like these have become very popular lately. I work in the industrial district of my city. It's one way in and one way out, so we call it the island. There's a single convenience store. Last night I stopped by as I usually do after work. There were no cars there, but at least 20 or so tourists. I see this often, but I saw no bus this time. As I got my stuff and got in line, I began getting looks from all of them, like I was out of place. I just kept to myself and stood in line. A minute later, a couple of ladies from the group came and stood in line right next to me. Not slightly behind me by any means, directly next to me. The line moved forward and we got to the register. I'm just flat out confused, but the cashier only rang me up for my stuff. As I left a group, some of them were walking directly towards my car. At this point, I'm getting nervous. As I walk closer to my car, the group is almost intentionally walking to it. Then one guy stops about 2 feet from the driver's door and just stands there. I shuffle between him to open my door, and the guy looks at me and asks me a question in a language I didn't understand. I just silently got in my car and started it. I took one last glance over, and about 6 of them were all standing a few feet from my car in a line with blank stares. I drove off and felt like I was in a dream for most of the ride home. At first, I thought it was a cultural thing inside the store where the bigger the group, the tighter the line or something. But the car experience still has me a little freaked out. This user's story is very creepy. I didn't want to be in his or her shoes anytime soon. The following story is so strange that it was dissected and explained from all angles with logical explanations, trying to make sense of what really happened. Vexedrine tells in his own word what happened. This was about 2 months ago. My wife and I were driving down a back road in Oklahoma, headed back to our house. To set the scene, it was about 5 or 6 p.m. My wife says it was after midday, but I don't recall the time. Regardless, the sun was still fairly high in the sky, and the weather was comfortable. It was probably 80 degrees with a light breeze. There's a 3-way at this specific spot, and it's essentially a 4-way, but one side is a private drive, and the opposite direction heads to the highway. We were headed in such a way that the road that leads to the highway was on the right-hand side, and there were 5 tall weeds along the road blocking the view of the street. Just as we approached the 3-way and began slowing down, we both witnessed a man doing what I can only describe as a very well-performed high-knee reverse jog. But it wasn't just that. He had a feather piece on his neck that also poked straight out backward toward where he was running, and he pumped his arms running backward, and right when his foot touched the grass by the driveway, he went into a very well-orchestrated stretch downward, and the feather dropped flat down his back, and he stood up and began walking forward as nothing happened. I stopped and proceeded through the stop sign, And I kid you not, the dude started sprinting after the car, and after I was 100 plus feet away, he began waving his arms like he was trying to get my attention. Definitely ranks as one of my top bizarre experiences recently. We never had a glitching story in the lab. What has always fascinated me in movies is how scientists create things in a lab. Then an accident occurs, and either they transform into a superhero or a creature that wants to take over the world. Hopefully, AlkeneThiol on Reddit won't take us to such extremes with his tale. My question is, broken objects were made, a common glitch, with my own example from a laboratory. My story. In undergrad, I was doing honor research in a biophysics lab. My project was measuring the kinetics of a purified, highly complex ribonucleic protein from assembly to catalysis, without adding more unnecessary esoterics. What this meant practically is that our reagents were hard to make, expensive, and sensitive. We developed a system that could analyze this protein using a combo of spectroscopic techniques. Don't worry, this isn't a technology glitch story. But because our supplies were precious, we used specialized vessels that fit the machines and amplified our signal-to-noise ratio. Here is a modern example. They are called cuvettes. Normally, they're cheap disposable. This one is $700. The price was $700 20 years ago also. So $1,000 in today's dollars. I was an undergrad. The last thing I wanted was to break a $1,000 thing. You see where this is going. I broke a $1,000 thing. I was a noob. Put my glove on inside out, and after spritzing my gloves with ethanol, didn't wait long enough to dry. When I went to take the cuvette out of the machine, it did a slip and slide launch out of my fingers, hit a sharp corner inside the machine, went crack, and spilled its contents all over. Quartz is really annoying when it cracks. I fished the thing out of the machine and saw not only did it crack, but a tiny chunk of quartz was missing. Great, now maybe I broke a $15,000 thing if that chunk fell into a bad place in the machine. I went to the core admin, who was very nice and understanding. I explained what happened up to taking the cuvette out, and with his strong Zimbabwean accent he says, "And you broke it," with rolling R's. I shrugged sheepishly. He laughed. We walked to the machine. He brought a flashlight to look inside the receptacle and said, "Oh Jesus, it is dirty in here." I said, "Yeah, I spilled a bit. I'm worried some glass is in there." And when I picked up the cuvette to show him what size the chunk was. Unbroken. No crack. No chunk is gone. He shined the flashlight on it. Guess it's your lucky day, huh? Then he showed me how to pop open the machine to clean it. Turned out cuvettes broke often since there were several little slivers of quartz or plastic in there. I kept just repeating, "I don't get it." He was like, "Maybe you working too hard, eh?" But no, completely sober, well rested. The next day, my grad student mentor was instructing me on how to do a new type of export using his cuvette. We had two, mine and his, and he straight up dropped it on the floor after taking it out of the machine. That time, pieces went everywhere. I think I said, "Final destination." He said, "Huh." I shrugged. I didn't tell him I thought I broke the thing, of course. Didn't want him to lose trust in me. There seem to be a lot of stories here where very clearly broken objects, usual ones with great value, are suddenly restored. Faulty memory could count for some, I'm sure, but I wonder why this is a theme. Perhaps because they are easily noticed. Have you ever seen a vehicle change color? What about a moving aeroplane in the sky? SomeBlokeFaraway on Reddit tells the story of the odd experience with a color-changing plane. First time posting here, thought I'd share as it seems to fit within the should I share flowchart. Also, I thought this was interesting and would be curious to know if anyone has experienced something similar. So, to give some context, I'm in Oxfordshire, UK, and earlier today, whilst me and the family were driving home, I noticed an unusual plane. The reason it was unusual was that it was completely white, no logos, etc. It's worth me pointing out that as I was the one driving, I wasn't able to get the greatest of looks. Anyway, the plane was kinda low, perhaps having just taken off or coming into land. The strange part here was that the plane appeared to change color. To elaborate, the plane was white initially, which was unusual enough, but changed to a gray color. Normally, I'd think nothing of it, however, as the plane was unusual in the first place. I had mentioned it to my partner and 5-year-old son, who all saw the same thing. Some points to note. We did not see the plane physically change color. It happened in a few seconds when we were driving past some trees or bushes and the line of sight was obscured. However, the military gray plane which we saw, I'm pretty certain, was the same plane. This is due to the height and direction it was traveling. If it was two separate planes, they would have had to be extremely close to one another. I'm a relatively skeptical person and have tried looking at this logically, but I'm stumped on an actual answer. It's been a sunny day here today, and I don't believe the color change could have been due to any lighting given the differences between the colors. If we are in a simulation, then the easiest way to describe what we saw was a rendering glitch. The colors took a little too long to load. Again, this would have been something I'd have brushed off had I been the only one to witness it, but curious to hear others' thoughts or experiences. On Reddit, user Steina84 shares this glitch, coincidence, or fate story. Tell us in the comments what it could be. My husband and I have been together for a long time. Since we were 11, 38 now, I decided when we were 11 that he was the boy I was going to marry. I just knew in my bones I was meant to be with him. In our grade 5 romance, he gave me a tiny silver frame as a gift. It seemed antique and unique. I kept it. I didn't have a picture of it, but I kept it all these years. Cut to many years later, we had a child. Strangely enough, our child was born on our anniversary, unplanned. Anyways, I finally put the frame to use with a picture of our son. It sits on my desk at work. I started noticing something really strange. Occasionally, when my desk gets bogged up with paperwork or I'm shuffling things around, I sometimes accidentally knock the frame over. On those days when the frame gets knocked over, my son gets hurt. So far, not badly hurt, but something happens to him. The first few times I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but it's happened at least 5 or 6 times now over the last few years. Just happened again today, which prompted me to write this. I knocked it over, and I immediately picked up the phone to call my husband to check on them. Sure enough, my son was playing with one of those plasma electricity balls and ended up breaking the glass in his hands just minutes after I dropped the frame. Do I have a magical frame? Should I put a picture of Justin Trudeau in there and throw it off of a building? Jokes aside, just thought this was an interesting twist of fate and something this subreddit might enjoy. This is Guitar Hunter 1996 on Reddit, telling his strange story about his experience. I woke up and saw a faint red light in the pitch black room. Scared, I woke up at about 1:30. I sleep in my bed with my fiancé. We live deep in the country, with just trees and the sounds of acorns falling. Tonight we woke up at exactly the same time, and we both noticed a faint red light, and it went away. I got terrified that it was like a laser pointer or some flashlight, but my window curtains are closed except for a little bit. Someone would have to be very close to getting light through my window, because we sleep right in front of the window. After a mini anxiety attack of thinking someone is sneaking outside, finally calmed down. We have also been experiencing some paranormal activity. We have a ghost that we call the Mimic that recreates noises we make during the day and in the middle of the night. The latest was when it copied the sound of us turning off the lamp for bed. Wondering if maybe this light could be paranormal related. Has anyone experienced this? I want to sleep and go back to work, but I'm scared. Can this be a glitch or just a strange story? Leave your comments on what it can be. This was a great collection, don't you agree? This mix of strangeness shows us how people are dealing with another type of normal. For now, glitches in the Matrix are part of our everyday lives. If you have a strange or glitching story, have it featured in my next collection and send it to storyscary152@gmail.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when new videos are uploaded.